Good morning, children. Today I am going to start the third part of the lesson. That is, yesterday I had started the second. I had ended the second part of the lesson, the interview, which is the title of the lesson. I believe that books will never disappear. So today I'll be continuing with the third part of this lesson. That is, so yesterday when I had stopped, children, I had stopped where we come to know about a question which is asked to John Louis Bourges by Alfano. That the question is, in one of your essays, you have told that the words of Bernard Shaw. So, in one of your essays, you have told the famous words of Bernard Shaw. Every book worth being reread has been written by the Spirit. So, with lot of emotion and with lot of soul, he says, Bernard Shaw, every book is worth rereading and it has been written by Spirit or with lot of emotions or soul. And that's what he says. And do you agree with it? Is the question which he asks, Alfano asks Bourges. And Bourges says, yes, I completely agree with your belief. I completely agree with your notion. Means, yes, I do believe that with your belief, because every book which has been read goes beyond author's intention. The intention what the author has written may not be the same when the reader reads it. So every book goes beyond its author's intention. The author's intention is a meager thing, a fallible thing. So what the author has written, he has got his own way of writing, his own idea about this book, and he might have written it with lot of emotions and soul. But when it comes to a reader's own opinion, it's in a book, in every book there is a need for something more, which is always mysterious. So the author might have written to his satisfaction, but when a reader goes with the book, when he reads it, it doesn't mean that he has to agree with each and everything the author tells him. So he may have his own opinion. And here what happens, there is always something mysterious about a book, he says. And when we read an ancient book, especially the books which have, where we come across the ancient times, where we read about the kings, the period, about the history of other part, where it is very ancient. It is as though we are reading all the time that has passed from the day it was written to our present day. So we go to read about some of the ancient time periods history. When we go through the history books, we pass on through many ages. So when we come to the Vijayanagara Empire, so which is when we go through the study of Vijayanagara Empire, there is a gap of nearly 500 to 600 years gap. So when we read about that particular king or the period or the culture about a particular about that kingdom or the time which was there, the time at present is 2020, but we read about a period which is in 16th century. So when we read about something which has passed nearly 14 to 400 and 500 years back, we go through that, we just travel with the book. We go with our book, we pass through the years from 2020, we go back to the period when the kingdom was there. So we just imagine that we are at the present at that particular. So the imagination of our own mind, where we travel through the time, and we go to, and the passes from the day it was written, we go to that particular period when it was written. So this is the author who has written at that particular period. So we go through the 16th century where it has been written, and we pass through those centuries, those many years when we are reading that, and we go with our own imagination. A book can be full of errors. Sometimes when we read a book, we feel that it has got a lot of many things which are errors, which are mistakes. And what happens, we can sometimes what happens, we can reject author's opinion, disagree with him or her, but the book always retains something which is sacred, something mortal, something magical, which brings happiness. So there is no agreement that we have to agree with all the author has written in his book. Because when I read a particular novel or an essay or a scientific fiction, I have got my own opinion, where I just have my own opinion. ನನ್ನ ಅನಿಸಿಕೆಗಳು, ನಾನು ಆ ಬುಕ್ಕನ್ನು ಓದಿದಾಗ, ನನಗೆ ಆ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಓದಿದಾಗ ನನ್ನದೇ ಆದ ಭಾವನೆಗಳು, ನನ್ನದೇ ಆದ ಅನಿಸಿಕೆಗಳು ಆ ಬುಕ್ಕಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಐ ಗಿವ್ ಮೈ ಓನ್ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್. I don't want to agree with what the author has said. So author might have stopped a tragic story with an end of a tragic incident. I just feel it is not at all correct. It should have been like that. So there is no, there can't be an agreement with all the times with the author. We may feel he has made a mistake here, or he should have done the ending like this, or he should have made the character like this. So we have got our own opinion where it doesn't agree with the author's opinion so many times. And but whatever the opinions of one particular novel or a book or a poem we have got, it may have changed from many things, but the book always retains something sacred. So we just don't throw away the books just because it is not, I don't agree with an author, because books are something special. Sometimes they are mortal, something magical which brings happiness. So we find happiness, we find mystery in it, we find sacredness, and we find it is mortal always. So book gives us happiness whatever we go through. So book has got a special place in every human being's life, it is told. Now Alfano asks one more question to Bogues. See, Bogues, what is poetry according to you? How do you define it? See, we have gone through essays, novels and all, and you have written even the poems. Come on, tell me, what's your opinion and what is your description about poetry? Now, Bogues goes on telling, see, I believe that poetry is something intimate, so essential that cannot be defined without oversimplifying. See, always, I believe that poetry has got a special place. It's very personal, it's so intimate, it is very close to my heart, and it is very essential that it cannot be defined without oversimplifying. You can't put very hard words. Poems or poetry should be told in a very simple form, where each and means the reader should be understanding it and enjoy it. Because if you put in simple words, then only you can go with if you oversimplify them, oversimplifying, not like novels or anything, the poetry has to be understood very clearly, and if you use the most simple words only, you can just go with it. It could be like attempting to define the color yellow, love, and fall of leaves in autumn. So sometimes what happens, we have to, some colors indicate their own emotions here. So for example, color yellow, it indicates a yellow color. If a yellow color has come in a poem, or which indicates love, like that only the falling of the leaves, which are brown in color or reddish in color, when they fall to the ground in the season, particularly in autumn, the leaves in autumn, that is the color yellow, define the color yellow as love, and the fall of leaves in the autumn. I believe the poetry is aesthetic act. So here the poetry has got its own way of explaining, where it describes about the falling of leaf of autumn, and even the color yellow, which defines about love. Like that, and the poetry is not the poem, for the poem may be nothing more than series of symbols. Sometimes poetry goes with many of the definitions, many of the ways of telling indications, like color. I told the color representing love, and particular color representing the falling of leaf, representing some other things. Like that only, there are many series of symbols in poetry, many series of symbols in poetry, where poetry, I believe, is the poetic act that takes place when the poet writes it, when the readers read it, and it is always happened in the slightest different manner. So poetry is something which we just enter into a poem. When we read the poem, you just have the feeling of enjoying with the poem with the author. Like the poet has written so many beautiful words, a simple words poem, where we just enjoy reading the poem and experiencing it also. Like The poetic act which has been taken into place is when the poet writes it, when the reader reads it. The poet has written enjoying the particular nature or the season or the flower or the water's sound of a water also inspires him, or when he is in a forest or when he has gone through one of the scenes what he has seen, the beauty of it has been described, or the death scene has been described where a sorrowful poem has been written. And here the way the reader reads it, he also experiences it sometimes. Poetic act, and that plays when the poet writes it, when the reader reads it. And it always happens in the slightly different manner. So there is a little bit of difference, that's all. Very slight different manners between the reader and the poet. When the poetic act takes place, it seems to me that we become aware of it. So sometimes when the poems, when we read it, when the action takes place in it, we see, it seems to me that we become aware of the poem. And poetry is magical and mysterious and unexplainable sometimes, although not incomprehensible event. If one does not feel the poetic event upon reading it, the poet has failed. Sometimes we get so much involved in a song, involved in a poem, involved in the poetry what has been written. So we just go deep inside the poem, and we just how the author has described the beauty of a person or of the nature or of the beauty of a forest or about a particular thing, that with the simple oversimplified words we just enjoy reading the poem, and we just get carried away with the poem, and where we feel the poetry is magical. It just makes me enter into a magical world of mine, and sometimes it is very mysterious also. I feel so mysterious. I feel a particular way of mystery when I read it, and sometimes I am unable to explain. I can feel the feelings of the poem. I can just feel the poet's emotions in the poem, but I am unable to explain it. But whatever it is, the thing is, it is not incomprehensible event. We can understand it, we can go through it, we can feel it, and that's how, and we can enjoy it, a poem. And if one doesn't have these feelings, magical, mysterious, unexplainable, incomprehensible event, if you don't have the poet, after reading the poet or poem also, then you just have this feeling the poet is not able to get connected to. So the poet is not successful in making the poet is not successful, and he has failed in writing this poem, and he is unable to capture the reader's mind. That is what. So here, if one doesn't feel that the poetic event upon reading it, so he might have written some poem, and the author might be the author has failed in his attempt in making the reader understand it, and there the poet fails, it is told. So we have to use oversimplified words, and what all the Bogues describes here. And now the next question is, Bogues, what is the importance in the art of poetry is finding the precise words. So he says, see, to a poet, the words which are used here, the precise word, the perfect words, precise words are the perfect words. So he says, Bogues, what is important in the art of poetry is finding the precise word. The poet has to search for the perfect word which matches his emotions, his feelings. And if you put that particular words only, a poetry is successful according to the Alphino. And this he questions. When Bogues, yes, Bogues also now answers. To a great extent, I do agree with your words. So the words which are very perfect only should be added. These precise words, what eliminates, what highlights the emotions of a person. So when you write a poem, you have to use the precise words which highlight the particular emotion of that particular poem. And I always remember that wonderful line in a poem by Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is a poetess who has written in a poem how she goes comparing, uses this precise words, the perfect words in a poem. And for example, which can exemplify this, which can be highlighted in that particular poem what she has written, that the exemplifying this quote, dust was gentlemen and ladies, are the words, are the poetic words which she has written in a poem, that is Emily Dickinson. The idea is banal. So the idea is banal, but the words which she has quoted is, this quote, dust was gentlemen and ladies, are the first words. The idea of dust, the dust of death, according to this poem, the dust has been compared to the death in human life. We will all be dust one day. So a birth and death are two faces of a coin. A child is born, and when a man is born, and there is when he is born, one fine day he has to die. That is the rule of life. So here she says that we will all be dust one day. So definitely we are going to die. Is a glitch, is the mean word which has been taken here, is the perfect word which has been taken. But what surprises is the phrase gentlemen and ladies. How do the words gentlemen and ladies been written here, which gives a perfect sentence, and how it matches these words, which gives the magic and poetic quality in this. And if she had written, if instead of writing gentlemen and ladies, if she would have written there men and women, it would have failed as a poetry. Like if she, instead of using gentlemen and ladies, if she would have used the words in her poem men and women, that would have been an utter failure of a poem. It would have failed as a poetry. It would have been trivial, means it would have not have at all had any meaning. But finding the precise word, she wrote the finding the perfect words, she has written, this quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies. So she has found the perfect words, the precise words, and she has written in a poem, this quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies, this quiet death which is being compared to dust, and that is what she tells as gentlemen and ladies, which go hand in hand with perfect words which are being used. And even the words gentlemen and ladies has gone through very well matched in the poem. That's what Emily Dickinson's example Bork gives for Alphonse. Now Alphonse asks one more question. You have said that metaphors exist are very beginnings. So you have said that metaphors exist from our very beginnings. Could you expound on the concept, Box? So he wants to know. I would just want to know, like you have said, metaphors existed not only now, they have been existing from a very, very long time. So from a very beginning, he says, from the time the man has learned reading and writing, these metaphors have been there present in the writing. And could you explain it on this concept, Box? He questions him. When he questions him, that is how he says, Box says, certainly I'll give you an example. See, when I want to go through this, yes, certainly I believe that metaphors, if they are truly metaphors, when you are telling, truly metaphors exist from the beginning of the time. So from the time man has started reading and writing, that have been started from that time, but we express them differently. The only thing is we express them in very different manners. And I have occasionally thought of reducing all these metaphors to 5 or 6, which seem to me to be the essential metaphors. For according to me, I have only taken limited metaphors which can be used, and that also according to me, where I have used only 5 to 6 metaphors in my poetry or in my novels, where I have given these comparisons, and if they are essential only, I have taken these metaphors. So metaphors are one which will be comparative, to something. So the comparisons of words which have been taken here, which have been compared as metaphors in my poem or in the thing which he said. So children, I'll be ending my class here, and tomorrow I'll be continuing the fourth part. Today I have ended the third part of this lesson, children, and thank you for that.